You will be forced to fight with the Vikings in the bloodiest war in history, and will go up against hundreds of thousands of the world's best fighters and a superhuman soldier, while you try and take down your father's killer and the most disgusting enemy of all, the English. Watch till the end and I'll show you how to beat the English in Vinland Saga, year 1002 AD, Iceland. These cake man-eating, snooze-sucking Scandinavian warriors are about to fight tea drinkers with accents, their cousins, the English. Thor here has to run away from his old badass Viking life and has been hiding out in Iceland. He now has a family, but his sissy man of a son, Thorfinn here, is bored of the peaceful life. Thor's friend here, Leif, tells the kid about a wonderful faraway land full of adventure called Vinland. The harsh winters in Iceland have been getting worse every year, and the village wonders how much longer they'll be able to survive here. Thorfinn finds out from Leif that his family ran away from Norway to live here, making him think his badass family is actually soft. And just then, a military ship arrives at their shore. It's the Vikings, the most brutal and badass warriors in Scandinavia. This man named Floki rushes out and asks to speak to Thors the troll, making the villagers and Thor's family nervous. Thors comes out, but the Vikings bow to him, and we find out Thors was the leader of their crew before he ran away 15 years ago. Speaking in private, Floki lays out the game plan. The English recently slaughtered Danish Vikings in Northumbria, England. And one of the victims was the king of Denmark's sister. And now the king is about to start an all-out war for the blood of England, and he needs warriors. Floki's Vikings have sided with the Danish army and will launch an attack on England next spring. Thor tells him he's out of the killing game, but Floki warns him that the king has called for everyone, even deserters. And if he doesn't join, everyone here will die, so there's that. No choice, Thor accepts the deal, and Floki announces it to the rest of the village, asking other villagers to join the cause. Thor waves him and his men goodbye, and says he will see him on the battlefield very soon, not realizing he will never reach it alive. Before leaving, he confesses to his family he used to be a warrior, and a good one at that. But one day got tired of killing and ran away, but now he must take responsibility for what he's done. Thorfinn gets caught finding Daddy's sword, but he tells him killing is wrong and he shouldn't end up like him. The next day he sets sail, with some village recruits, but Leif makes a secret plan with Thorfinn to drop off the young warriors when they make a scheduled pit stop in Norway, and will recruit locals there for the war instead. But on the way, Thorfinn comes out from hiding. Cute but annoyed, Thor is forced to bring him along. They soon pass the Faroe Islands during the middle of their trip and make a scheduled stop to resupply. Sailing between this fjord, Leif has passed by many times, but this time something is off. He notices the town up ahead has fewer houses than before. Thors and him decide to turn around, just as pieces of wood and scrap comes crashing down from above, blocking their way out. Two unknown ships start closing in on them. The gang thinks they're pirates. With archers up on the cliff, they are trapped. Thors can tell no one here is going to stand a chance and gives his son his little sword, telling him to only use violence as a last resort, as he figures out his next move. Look, while this situation seems impossible to get out of, there is a single way involving archers, psychological warfare, and the cover of darkness. Let me explain. These guys could never have known about the mercenaries and had literally zero reason to suspect shit was about to go down, unlike what Game of Thrones did in season 8. The problem is right now is that the journey from Iceland was about 450 kilometers or 280 miles, and they're nearly out of food. Going back right now on a single shot is risky, since even if they could escape right now, they would have to manage with little supplies, plus there's snotty-nosed kids on board, and they just can't eat them, sadly. However, there still is a way they could have escaped by targeting one of the islands that is closer than Iceland that they might have a shot at reaching, which is a place known as the Orkney Islands. If of course they can get out of this place alive. So right now trouble is coming and they have to act fast. So if I was Thor, I would know as a badass we could get out of this alive, but the main problem right now is the archers. Well, they haven't killed us yet and are likely waiting for somebody to give the orders, which means we have some time. I would first move the entire boat straight below one of the walls of the fjord, then use the forestay or mainstay of the boat to our advantage. I would use sail one of two that we have, and then attach the bottom part to the bow of the boat somehow, basically reducing dock visibility from the archers above. This would instantly reduce the archers' clear visibility of us, and this is important because this move would lessen the chances of them taking lucky shots at us. Because how long can someone keep firing in the dark before they get bored, before they get tired? I would then instruct everyone to pick up one of the hanging shields on the outside of the bow. We sought to provide actual protection under the sail cover, and with everyone as safe as can be, I would then attack the incoming ships, taking inspiration from skirmish tactics in order to target and psychologically mess with our enemy. Skirmish tactics tactics, prioritize harassment of the enemy by short and random attacks, mainly to cause havoc. And this is effective as, unlike general combat that would force the enemy to focus on the present moment to fight, engaging here and there would give the enemy a lot more time on their hands, and this constant sense of danger would make them think more, building up any dangers or fears in their head. The longer they wait for our next attack, just like chronic stress, which is low pressure felt over a prolonged period of time. The same type of effect would happen to these men by engaging in light attacks here and there before returning to our boat, who could keep the enemy at bay and slowly wear them down, with the goal of being to wait it out until nightfall. Because remember, none of this matters if we can't reach the archers. Keeping everyone at bay until nightfall would reduce visibility, and this would allow us to finally go ham under the cover of night, attacking the already weakened men. However many are left, before disabling or killing the leader, and then diving into the pitch black water. With our crew still safe, we could swim around the fjord and essentially take the battle to the archers, killing them swiftly or making them run off, before returning to our ship and sailing out the other way without trouble to Orkney Islands, if this place was out of food. And this was the best move at this point. Thors makes the first move, landing on the enemy ship, showing everyone who's boss, nearly taking the entire ship. This guy, Bjorn, second in command, eats a berserker mushroom and goes full on rage mode, and he attacks with no mercy. It is glorious. Go watch the anime. Meanwhile, the other enemy ship reaches Thor's group, but they want the kids alive, right as their top fighter crashes down in front of them. Thors returns to his kid and tells the enemies to leave at once. Analyzing the situation, he realizes as long as his kid is here, he can't do shit. Coming up with a new plan, he can tell this guy is the leader, named Askeladd. Thors challenges him to a duel. Whoever wins gets what they want. Askeladd calls Thor by his full title, revealing he was set up by his friend Floki, who personally wants him dead, and not the young Vikings. They prepare for battle. Askeladd cuts the ship's sail, launching a surprise attack, but Thors quickly counters, showing his skills, both nearly equally matched. But Thors soon overwhelms him and baits him into swinging wide, disarming his weapon, and he catches Askeladd off guard, winning the match. But Thor says he can live as long as they surrender, cause a great warrior doesn't need to kill or some BS. But Askeladd checkmates him and dares him to kill him. Suddenly Askeladd's second in command lands on the ship and takes Thorfinn hostage. They make fun of Thor for assuming they would play fair and just want to test his skills. Thor asks Askeladd to honor the warrior rules and not harm his people. Askeladd finally agrees, admits defeat, but also signals his men to fire their arrows, instantly giving this kid HT nightmares of his daddy for life. Askeladd says he will respect the warrior code and let everyone live, while Thor kicks the bucket, of course. Later, Askeladd's men sail back to their base, but discover Thorfinn has snuck on board and vows to kill them. But since he's so pathetically weak, the men just leave him like a fly on the wall. The boats eventually reach England, near River Humber, as the men stop to get paid for Thor's murder and do what Vikings do best, pillage and plunder for some booty, while Thorfinn struggles to survive and is too dang proud to take free food from his father's murderers. That could either be a touch ungrateful or understandable. Take your pick. He hangs around the village over the next few days and tries to kill Askeladd, but it's too much of a big baby to finish the job. He finally challenges him for a duel in front of his men, and he gives it to him. Thorfinn charges with the power of his father, but he quickly gets his butt kicked as predicted by everybody. And now, back in Iceland. Leif and the others return Thor's belongings to his family and deliver the bad news bears, but Leif promises he will find Thorfinn no matter what. Oh, and Thor's daughter acts all tough until later when she breaks down. Back in England, Thorfinn starts training and learning how to survive by himself, and he comes across a wolf that attacks him, but he manages to kill it, and finally doesn't suck anymore. And now cue his official training arc. Okay, this kid was on the brink of death, but he just killed a wolf, which is amazing, but he's got a ways to go to kill Askeladd. Here's a big one. Wolf and human beings are different. Yes, wolves are terrifying, but they're not as smart as a human. Well, some humans. Okay, so this wolf is during the medieval times, and would have been a big significant kill with a whole lot of high protein and fats, and he could feed somebody for weeks or maybe even months. So, now that he's got his nutrition set, our main character can now finally work on taking down the man that killed his daddy. However, killing is a tall task, and as a kid, there's a risk he won't be mentally ready to pull the trigger when the time comes. This is why if I was him, I would increase the odds we pull this off by relying on something else that could do the killing for us. During this time period, there would have been various poisonous plants, like deadly nightshade, hemlock, and yew in the area, and they were known to be poisonous through ingestion. But there's a problem. Spotting these plants from regular plants would have been tough, and would have depended on local knowledge and expertise in herbalism and foraging. This is why with food set, I would have started finding villagers in this town, and be very charming or persuasive, however you want to do it, and basically find a town nearby and find somebody that can help us, somebody that knows plants and all of their properties, and learn about which ones would have been essential for everyday life, how to use them for food, medicine, because really, citizens at this time, some of them would certainly have herbal knowledge and it would have been something rather common. Worst case, I can target some people who specialize in this field like herbalists, healers, midwives, and many other communities that would have these type of specialists in the town due to their important knowledge. People would have known about them and where they lived, and besides, even if I didn't speak their language, I would have found a freaking piece of paper and pencil and drawn a flower with a death skull on it and act out even the effects of poison. Seriously, you know, like real theater boy type of stuff. Anyways, once we find the helper, I would channel my Viking heritage and force him to help us on the spot and make a powder, and ideally a liquid form of any poison he could. As I said, we might not have what it takes to kill Askeladd right now, but using poison sure would have opened up a lot more ways to creatively and discreetly kill him without us being there. Besides, there's no one else around, his family's not nearby. No one will know the severe dishonor he did by taking the easy way out, or dare I say the smarter way out, by maybe sneaking the poison into the food or water supply. So Askeladd's men get ready to move on from the village, but Thorfinn challenges Askeladd a final time. Now thinking that he's some hot shit since his training arc started like 10 minutes ago, Askeladd indulges him and they get it on. But this time everyone notices that Thorfinn has gotten better, and they're actually mildly impressed. Thorfinn pulls out a throwing knife move, nearly harming him, but he still gets his butt kicked and walks away like nothing happened. Thorfinn begs him to stay, so Askeladd finally throws him a freaking bone and says if he proves himself on the field of battle, then one day Askeladd will reward him with a proper duel, making a warrior's promise. As if that's meaning anything to him. Many of the men think Thorfinn won't go through all that trouble, but boy, he is 100% serious and agrees to the deal. And he ends up joining their team as they set sail to do more business around the English shores. Recently, Denmark has sent their armies and hired Vikings to help them annoy the English. While the Danish king prepares to launch a full-scale invasion in the next few years, here we find Askeladd's pirates wanting in on the action. And they soon run into some actually full-on legit Vikings who are having some trouble in the middle of a skirmish. Askeladd offers to help in exchange for half the booty and booty. The Vikings don't like pirates, but they agree to work together, and suddenly some English try to ambush them, forcing both groups to go on the offensive. While Thorfinn in the back watches in awe, he remembers what Askeladd's promise was and starts trying to be a man's man, getting lucky and killing his first Englishman, stabbing the crumpets right out of him, unlocking his inner badass. And then he spends the next few years learning the warrior's way on Askeladd's team, becoming what his father always wanted him to not be, a sick-ass killer and a pirate. He soon becomes Askeladd's main scout, and one day goes on a routine mission to check out this local area. You know, doing God's work and killing some more English bastards. But he ends up getting pinned down and exhausts himself, kicking their butts. The next day, two English lassies find Thorfinn passed out by a river. They rescue him back to theirs and give him food and shelter, while hearing his potato-filled mouth-sounding language. Realizing, oh shoot, he's Danish, the daughters think, hey, they should hand him over to the enemy, but the mother says, nah, and starts to de-lice his hair instead, because that's what they do over there apparently. An Englishman soon passes by and states they're looking for a Danish kid on the loose, but the mother tells him Thorfinn is her son, saving him. That night, the daughter gets annoyed at her mother for pulling this kind of shit, but the mother thinks that no one becomes a pirate as a kid unless they've been through some, really tough shit. The daughter's about to rat him out when Thorfinn escapes the house, burning an empty house near the coastline. He signals Askeladd and his men waiting on their boat that this area is ripe for plundering. Some English soldiers show up, forcing Thorfinn to kill them, while Askeladd's men quickly arrive and start going ham. But Thorfinn spots the mother from earlier crying and feels bad for a split second, but then he goes back to being an absolute menace, because he's got his priorities in the right place. So a few more years of good old Danish-English fighting goes by, and the war only gets worse as the King of Denmark tells everybody that, they can take a break, because next summer they will finally launch their invasion on England, with the king leading the charge. Meanwhile, Askeladd's men worry they don't have enough loot for winter, and have already ransacked all the villages around, and there's no more booty to be had. So with the Danish invasion not happening for a while, and now there's a whole lot of infighting happening in France, they decide to head there to see if maybe they can make some money instead. They soon arrive and see all the lords of the land fighting each other. Knowing this fortress is holding a lot of treasure, Askeladd tells Thorfinn to make contact with the invading clan and offer them a deal. But Thorfinn tells him he's still waiting on their duel, so Askeladd says if he can get the head of a general, then they can talk. Since being a scout is one of the worst jobs there is, and there's a high turnover rate apparently. Meanwhile, Thorfinn reaches the clan leader and tells him they can help their clan break into the fortress in exchange for half the loot. The clan leader tells Thorfinn the river leading up to the fortress is blocked by a waterfall, and there's no way they can attack from the back. But Thorfinn manages to convince him they'll take care of it and makes a deal. The next day, the clan leader waits for Askeladd's men to show up, wondering where they could be, just as the ground starts rumbling and Viking boats burst out from the forest behind being carried by Askeladd's men. As they run down the hill, Thorfinn finds out the identity of the clan general here, thanks to his fancy helmet. As he rushes in with everyone on a different mission, he launches over the cliff, latching onto the fortress walls, while Askeladd's group land their ships into the water next to the fortress, going from the back while Thorfinn takes the front, but are surprisingly met with crossbow defenses, throwing Askeladd's men off guard. Okay, well there was a much simpler way that could have prevented these men from running into any problems, and would have made their day way easier in order to be able to take down this fortress, and it involves stiff wood and fire. Let me explain. During medieval times, from the 9th to the 12th century, social and political structure in France was ruled by feudalism, which means there was way more lords around, and there was a bunch of fortified structures like this that played a crucial role in defense and governance of noble families. But it's this type of defense that is commonly known as a river fortress or water castle, and they were designed to take advantage of the river, with direct access from the back allowing easy access to supplies from the sea, meaning this place can hold out against a siege for a long time. This is why if I was team young Vikings, I would do what these guys did, but way more effectively, and I would have chosen to charge with the boat during the cover of nightfall instead. But I would have carried 3 tree logs or simple wood on the top of the boat doused in oil as well, targeting 2 points of the fortress, the corner here and the entrance here, leaving someone at both points there to set it up in flames as well. The darkness would instantly reduce visibility, and here's why. The entire structure of the fortress is made of wood except the stone bridge. This means Team 2 leaving the second log on fire at the entrance along with log 1 in the corner would have caused the fortress men inside to split up to handle both fires. See, divide and conquer. And the front entrance would be compromised and would have caused the archers above to naturally lose their biggest advantage of having high ground advantage, which is suitable for their long-range weaponry. This would have also made them effectively useless in taking ship 1 on as it sailed into the back of the fortress, and would have allowed our men to enter without too much trouble or hassle, and take out the fortress from within without fear of arrows right away. The good thing about Viking longships is that they were designed to be lightweight and versatile, meaning even Team 2 during this time could have also begun making its way into the water as well to reach us, since the fortress would have been too distracted due to the fire and dark visibility to stop them anyways, leaving us with 2 full ships and no defenses short or long range to stop us from plundering this thing to all heck. The fortress tries to prepare new defenses when Thorfinn lands right in front of the commander. He charges in, takes no prisoners, and swiftly kills a whole bunch of people, and takes the commander's head. But whoopsie, it falls accidentally into the river, which forces him to jump down and get it because duh, he wants to kill Askeladd, all prim and proper, you know, way of the warrior and all that crap. Askeladd's men take the back, quickly overwhelming the forces and taking down the fortress. The French clan they teamed up with is finally led in from the front, but plans to double-cross Askeladd's group. But they discover they've already left with the gold and treasure, and Askeladd's group sails off thinking Thorfinn died, but he shows up with the commander's head to demand his duel. Askeladd says, alright, sure, let's do it, but let's wait a minute until we leave this area, okay? And delays the fight again. Now some time has passed, and we're all set for winter until the Danish invasion next summer, and everybody heads back to their original village in Denmark to meet up with their accountant named Jorm. He goes through their expenses while everybody chills out, and Askeladd finally gives Thorfinn the duel he promised. Everybody gathers outside as Thorfinn charges at him, showing he's increased in speed and strength, and Thorfinn tries to use his close-range dagger up and quickly overwhelms Askeladd this time and almost outsmarts him. However, Askeladd then starts to pretend he doesn't remember killing Thors because he's killed so many pathetic losers, insulting his dad even more and pisses Thorfinn off even more, and he gets super emotional and miscalculates his moves and ends up getting beaten again. Askeladd tells Thorfinn he made the mistake of losing his cool and tells him he's still got a lot to learn, breaking his shoulder before dinner, before ordering his men to put it back in. Later, everybody gets super drunk as balls, while Thorfinn hangs outside. Gorm's servant brings him dinner, but he makes fun of her for choosing to be a servant, and she tells him she has nowhere to go. So Thorfinn tells her of a place his dad told him about called Vinland. So fast forward to 7 months later, the invasion of England finally begins, and all of Denmark's finest warriors have gathered, including Loki's young Vikings, plus 4 brigades. The king leads everyone into northern England, and quickly gets 5 English towns to surrender, near Gainsborough. The king has also brought along his non-violent son, Canute, to make a man out of him, but most of Denmark doesn't think that's possible. It is now October 13th, 13 AD, London, England. They soon reach the capital of Londinium, and they see what they're up against. This bridge fortress that has been under attack for years because nobody's been able to get through it, and they also spot a familiar Danish guy. This guy, Thorkell, who is the strongest known Danish warrior aside from Thors, but this time is sided with the English for money. Askeladd's men get a little bit nervous, but he tells them he's sided with the Danish because he thinks they'll win this war. Since so many clans have joined the English invasion, there isn't enough profit to go around, but if they help capture this location, they might impress some powerful people watching this battle, which could promote their pirate career somehow. He plans to use Thorfinn this time to take care of Thorkell, and tells him if he can get Thorkell's head, he will get another chance at a duel, knowingly sending Thorkell to his probable death. Meanwhile, Floki tells the king of Denmark that Thorkell can't be convinced to join their side, but the king tells him to resume the attack, sending in Danish ships to hit the bridge from below. Thorkell surprises them by literally throwing tree logs down at the ships, destroying them in one go like a baller. It's pretty freaking cool. He makes fun of the Danish king right as Thorfinn shows up to surprise attack him, dodging his strike and avoiding his first moves. But Thorfinn quickly realizes if he gets hit once, oh shoot, he is dead. He goes for the throat but misses, because Thorkell's weak points are way too high up. So he aims low, sweeps the leg and hits the knee, almost hitting Thorkell's vitals, but he catches the blade and starts slamming Thorfinn around while Askeladd watches disappointed. The horn sounds off and everybody is forced to retreat for today. Thorkell thinks Thorfinn is now super dead, but he surprise slices off his fingers. Impressing so much, he asks for Thorfinn's name, finding out he's the son of Thor before seeing him escape, and he is super happy with today's battle and tells him they'll meet again soon. Later, everybody on the Danish side is beaten up and the king is starting to think, whoops, they might never win, and they must capture the rest of England before they run out of supplies. Floki manages to convince him to leave 4,000 soldiers behind while him and everyone else heads west, leaving his son to command the forces with Floki, making him and everybody else nervous. Nearby, Thorfinn finally exits the river downstream, running into Askeladd as he joins the king's march west. Back at Londinium, the king's son ends up not leading any battles and just sits there and prays a lot, and everybody's just forced to wait and wait. Now Thorkell in the fortress starts to wonder why is nobody attacking them and starts to get super sad, but finds out from this one soldier that the Danish king is left, his son in charge. So what do you expect happens? Thorkell gets the most evil idea of all time. So 1 month later, Askeladd's group gets greedy and separates from the king's army and makes a pit stop to pillage and plunder a little bit because hey, you know, bad habits die hard. However, some of his men wonder when they'll go back, but Askeladd reveals a rumor that he's heard, that the Danish king has left the country already, since Denmark is expected to soon win this war, so they might as well just chill out. But that night, a Danish messenger looking for the king's army accidentally runs into Askeladd's men instead. Desperate and on the clock, the messenger tells Askeladd the bad news. Their Danish army in Londinium has been wiped out. The prince has been taken hostage, and Thorkell and his 500 men are planning to surprise attack the king's army soon. He asks these pirates to help them rescue their Danish prince, and Askeladd agrees, cutting his head off, and says they'll go rescue the prince and then ransom him to either side that pays the most. And everybody's like, hey, good plan! The next day, Thorkell and his men pass through the forest with the prince as hostage. Just as they can tell something is off, Thorkell gets handed a spear and listens closely before firing at a troop hiding out nearby, forcing the Danish army to come out from hiding, and they state they know their prince has been taken hostage and have come to rescue him. They warn Thorkell that over 2,000 men surround him as they speak, and maybe you should hand over the prince now or else. But Thorkell knows they're full of shit, but happily hands the prince over, confusing the Danish army. Thorkell says now there's nothing holding them back, and they're now free to fight him. With their manhood now on the line and no reason to hold back, the Danish army hesitates since this was not part of the plan. The prince's caretaker tells them they must retreat since they have the prince, but Thorkell's insults get to their heads and they end up charging in, falling exactly into Thorkell's trap as he unleashes hell all onto them, killing nearly all the troops in minutes. But that's when everyone starts to smell a nearby fire, as smoke quickly covers the area, blinding every single one of them. And Thorkell thinks this fire is suspicious, since the Danish army wouldn't risk harming their own prince, and suspects there's a third party in this fight. Okay, well this might seem like an impossible mission, and it probably is. There's a much more effective way to handle this. Look, these guys have had time on their hands, which means I would have first gotten some info about Thorkell's weaknesses, since he's like way too overpowered. So basically approaching him like any other bad guy is super dumb. So we know that Thorkell has a bloodlust for combat, and he would happily jump into a fight without too much logic. And thinking about it this way, you know, it could have allowed the men to see in advance that giving Thorkell a logical way out with a bluff wouldn't have done shit. The current young Vikings' plan of setting the forest on fire was good, but there was too much risk, and they were still relying way too much on Thorfinn. I would first have waited to see if there was an area that favored vertical fighting more favorably, where our forces could have ambushed from higher up, using ranged weaponry and tactics instead of using close-up fighting, like by selecting areas with either defensive walls or elevated terrains with better high grounds or commanding the area, also with its clear visibility, or a place like River Avon, which would have been flowing through the area at that time and would have offered a natural barrier with more potential ambush points along its banks. All these points would have made this mission way more feasible to coordinate an ambush, or a defensive maneuver using multiple strategic positions in and around the area of Bath that they were already in, and really focus on a fighting style that it doesn't put them directly in the killing machine that is Thorkell's face, because like everybody knows this would end badly if you get up close. They really should have thought this through a little bit more. The prince's men get cornered by Thorkell's men, but Thorfinn shows up soaked in water, pulling out his knives to save the prince. A forest fire suddenly separates his group from Thorkell's. Thorkell smiles and tells him he can't wait to fight the son of Thor, and will let him have the prince for now, and will hunt them all down like a predator before the war is over.
So guys, what do you think? Did you like the video or didn't you like the video? Let us know what you think about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, don't forget to check out our How to Beat playlist.